Hello, you. Welcome to YouTooSpain Live. On today's show, you and I are going to be asking our very good friend Fran, the lawyer, all about inheritance tax and wills in Spain, so that you have the essential knowledge you need to navigate the process successfully. Fran will be joining me on the virtual settee by the virtual pool very shortly. So stick around and enjoy the show. If you're watching the video back afterwards, you can ask questions in the comments below. First of all, then, gather round, give us a little wave, hit the like button, and have your questions ready, or just relax and enjoy the chat. Welcome to YouTooSpain. Let's dance. Groovy, baby. Right then, just before we get chatting, don't forget to make a note of our website, YouTooSpain.com, which is growing all the time, and you can find loads of resources, specialists and links there that you need for your move to Spain and for living here too. There's a free newsletter at the beginning of every month, and you can sign up for that for free. Doesn't cost you a penny to subscribe, nor does it cost you anything to click subscribe on this very channel on YouTube. Subscribing here just means you're telling YouTube that this is one of your favorite channels and you want to know when new videos are coming out. Simple as that. It's a win-win-win with a cherry on top, just like that. So, without further ado, let's meet our excellent guest for today. It's Fran, the lawyer. Good morning, Fran.
Morning, Andrew. Thank you for having me here again.
You're very welcome.
Yes, I enjoyed a lot the last time. I promise I will give my best again.
Fabulous. I'm sure you will. It's wonderful to have you here. And yes, we were talking about property law last time, but it's inheritance and wills this time. So I've been speaking to a lot of people recently who said, oh yeah, I need to find out about that. I haven't done my will yet. So yes, this could be very interesting. And good morning to everybody on the live chat. Good morning, Bev. It's a lovely day in London today, she says. Good morning to Paul Cook and Kev the Argonaut. He says, good morning, Scats and Fran. And Adam Farmelo, good morning from sunny Wolverhampton. Well, that's a change for Wolverhampton, isn't it? They're off to sunny Turkey on Tuesday for 14 days. Well, enjoy your holiday. Tony Carles is with us. Jason's Webb, good morning to all of you and to everybody else who's just joining. And so, we've got some frequently asked questions to kick off this week's topic. So we'll get straight on with it because there's a lot of it depends on this subject, isn't there, Fran? There's a lot of different situations. So we'll get through as many questions as we can. Some of our watchers will be people living in Spain already or owning property in Spain. Others will be people whose relatives are living in Spain or they have properties there, so they're potential inheritors. You're all very welcome, and I'm sure we'll have answers to help everyone. So first good point I was talking to you about, Fran, before, which is that most people talk about inheritance. They imagine it's all about people who have property in Spain, but it's not just that, is it? What other types of assets are involved?
Yes, usually when people talk about inheritance in Spain, the typical things, okay, I don't have a property in Spain, but we are not talking about properties. We are talking about assets. And that means that if you only have a bank account in Spain with some money, or if you only have a car, you have to do the inheritance taxes in Spain. Okay. Mm-hmm. For this reason, not only think in your properties, think that usually you have a bank account in Spain, and to close the bank account, to take the money, you have to make your inheritance properly in Spain.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Now, how important is it to have a Spanish will?
Yes. Usually we have a lot of clients. Okay, Fran, I have an English will, or I have a will in my country. The will doesn't mention especially property in Spain. It's very general. Okay. This is good, but we usually advise to make an Spanish will. And the reason is, firstly, because in your will, you are going to declare, firstly, who will be your inheritors, and secondly, and this is very important, you have to declare what is the law you want to apply to your inheritance things. And this is very important because depend on your country, the regulations are very different. For example, in the UK, you can leave your assets without any limitation, okay? But if you are living in Spain and your last resident is Spain and you don't mention anything about your national law, the Spanish system, for example, has limitations. If you have children, you have some limitations and you have a minimum that you have to leave to your children. For example, the typical scenario is, okay, Fran, I want to leave all my assets to my wife or to my husband. And after that, these assets will go to the children. This is applying the Spanish law is not possible. For this reason, it's very, very important to declare in your will, okay, I want to apply my assets. And this gives you the possibility to leave your assets whatever you want, okay, and whoever you want. This is something very, very important, and especially this is because we have a new law, European law, that is applied in Spain from 2015, that gives you the possibility to make your will and clearly declare what is the law you want to apply.
That's very good to know, especially as I know a lot of our watchers are from the UK. So, yes, that's very, very important that you specify that on your will. So, you told me that in Spain there's something called the Registry of Last Wills. What's that all about?
Yes, okay. One of the best things in the Spanish system, and this is probably the best way to avoid problems, is because we have a will bank. That means that if you make a will in Spain in front of a notary, okay, this notary has to send, after you sign your will, has to send all this information to Madrid, to the will bank. That means that when something happened, especially if, imagine that something happened, unfortunately, you don't find a will from this person, we have the way to find this will, okay? Asking for this document from the will bank, we will know where, what town and what notary made the will, your last will. Okay? In the moment you find where was made the will, you can begin all the legal procedure.
Well, that's very interesting. I wish that happened in the UK, because we, myself and my family, when my father died, we had to look around and find, where did he make his will, and fortunately it was with a lawyer that he'd used before for other things as well. So we found it, but it took a few weeks to work it out.
But here is very easy. Is the best way to avoid problems about what was the last will. This is something that not only happened on the films. This is something that happened usually in our life, no?
Yeah. And you said that you told me before we came on air actually that it's the last will that's the very important one, and you can't actually make amendments to a will.
Yes.
You have to make a brand new one. So, and it's the last will that's really important.
Very important, because we usually have clients, okay, Fran, I want to make an amendment to my will. No, this is not possible in Spain. In the moment you decide to change something in your will, you have to make a new will, okay? And this new will is the will have to appear again in the will bank in Madrid, okay? And sometimes we can find this document with 3-4 wills, but the only valid is the last one.
That was an interesting question from, actually, I'll just put Jason's comment up. He says, it's not a problem for me as my ex-wife isn't getting anything from me. Nice, that's funny. Kev the Argonaut is asking, this is an interesting question. Does inheritance tax work in the same way that capital gains tax works? For example, if I inherit a UK estate in 1 year and become tax resident in Spain the following year, is there any inheritance tax due to pay in Spain?
Yes, the thing is, this is very controversial because we have a lot of possibility here, okay? We have something like the different option depending on if the person who passed away was resident or not in Spain, and depending on the inheritor is tax resident or not in Spain. Okay, we have to double check all of this because we have something like a different option to know what is the law you have to apply. If both parties, the person who passed away and the person who inherits the assets, are resident in Spain, they have to tax here with all the inheritance over the world. Okay, it's a worldwide. It's true that you, with the double taxation agreement, you won't pay for the same thing twice. That's true. Okay, but we have to check case per case because we have a lot of things involved in this different situation.
So different scenarios. It looks like in his scenarios, the answer might be yes. It works similarly to capital gains tax, because he's only became tax resident the following year.
Yes, but we have to know if the person from his inheriting was tax resident or not.
Yeah, I think he's saying he wasn't tax resident. Or he's, I mean, it's an example anyway, so it's not happened yet. So he's imagining that, oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there are a few different possibilities there. Huh. Oh, all currently resident in the UK, he says.
In that case, if you, when this happens, you were tax resident in the UK, you don't have to tax here for the same thing. Because we have to bear in mind that the date we have to take to decide about your tax residency is the date when the person passed away. Okay.
Okay. Not the day when the money comes through.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the key question here. Okay.
Good to know. He says he will be tax resident in 2024. So, yes, timing's important as always. There. Okay. Back to the questions then. I don't know if you've answered this one already, but is it possible to make a will outside of Spain and have it be valid only for the assets in Spain?
Okay. This is something probably new for somebody, but this is something we usually do for our clients because usually it's very typical that when the client is buying the property, ask for the Spanish will. Sometimes we also offer a pack with the purchases and the will together because usually it's the best advice, okay? But sometimes we have clients with properties and they don't have the possibility to come here to Spain in a short time. We can organize the will where they have to sign in front of the notary. And what we are going to do here is register this will in the will bank in Spain. That means that if something happens, when we go to the will bank to know where was done the last will, we will show, yes, it was a notary in the UK, and this was the last will. Valid only, this is very important, the Spanish will, we clearly mention that it's only valid for assets in Spain. We don't mention anything about assets out of Spain. Probably the best is to have one will in your country only for these assets, okay, and a Spanish will only for your Spanish asset, okay. Both wills can live together, one for the other country and one for Spain only.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Okay. Let's look then at some of the details of inheriting with a Spanish will. This is quite a general question, so there's probably quite a lot you can say. So what happens, who gets what, and who pays the tax?
Okay. The first thing we need to get is a death certificate, okay? if the person passed away out of Spain, we have to get the death certificate with for example, if it's a non-European country, for example, the UK, we have to get the document with the apostille, okay? And then we have to translate the document here in Spain, okay? This is the first things we need to check. Having this, then 15 working days later, we have to get this certificate from the will bank to know where was the last will. Mm-hmm. We will go there, we will find the last will. We have to bear in mind that we have 6 months mm-hmm. from the date of the death to complete all the taxes and all the legal requirements. Mm-hmm. This is especially the reason because we advise to have a Spanish will, because having the Spanish will is easier and is faster. And in 6 months, usually you have time enough to complete all the legal procedure, okay? Mm-hmm. But if we don't have the Spanish will, we have to wait the document from your country stating who are the inheritors. And sometimes the probate or things like that takes more than 6 months. It's mm-hmm. also true that you can apply for an extension of another 6 months. It's true. The reality is you have 1 year, okay? But if we have the Spanish will, we have the possibility in 6 months is enough to do all the legal things without any kind of problem.
Mm-hmm. So can you extend that deadline, or is it just extended from the first 6 months?
You have 6 months from the death date, and then you can apply for another 6 months.
Okay.
It's very another typical question. What happens if you don't have the time to do this in the 12th month? Okay. Firstly, you can do it whenever you can. This is the first thing. In case the result of the taxes is to pay taxes, okay, you have to pay a very little fine depending on when you submit the tax declaration, okay? Mm-hmm. Sometimes what we can do is, okay, we can try to apply for only the tax things, and then we can solve the other legal things. Because, for example, the typical scenario is a person with a property in Spain and some money in the bank, okay? Yeah. From the property, we have to go to the notary to say, hello, this person passed away, and we have to put his or her share in the name of the inheritors. This is something we are going to do in front of the notary. And at the same time, we will submit all the tax declaration. But imagine that we don't have all the documents to go to the notary. What we can do is submit the tax declaration, and when we have all the official documents, we can go to the notary and complete the transaction in front of the notary.
So that can happen quite quickly. Kev, the Argonaut, is saying that sounds important. You've got in the UK, you have to wait for probate to go through before they release the money, but not in Spain.
No, in Spain, for example, we are talking about the typical scenario again. Okay, the property and the money on the bank. Okay, about the property, you cannot sell the property as inheritor if you not complete this in front of the notary. Okay, in the moment you go to the notary and you make your inheritance deeds, you will appear in the land registry as owner, and you will have the possibility to sell your property. Okay, but about the bank, usually when the bank knows that this person passed away, the bank is going to freeze the share of this money in the bank account. Mm-hmm. The bank will wait until the taxes are submitted to unblock this money. In the moment these taxes are submitted and the bank knows all or have all this documentation, they will send or they will transfer the money to the inheritors according to the will. Okay, this is the typical thing. Usually, 6 months is enough. If we don't have something very strange, and if we have the Spanish will. But if we need a document from, in that case, for example, the probate, we have to wait until the probate is done.
Okay, sealed.
This is because to make an Spanish will is very advisable, because you are going to spend, I don't know, 200 euros, 300 euros maximum, but you are going to avoid a lot of problems in the future.
Good to know, yes. So, in our general question, you made a note about powers of attorney and NIES for inheritors?
Yes, the thing is, usually the inheritors are not living here, or they don't have any, they are not connected with the Spain, okay? As inheritors, we have to get for them NIEs, the foreigner identity in Spain, okay? Usually, inheritors can to Spain to do something, okay? That means that we, with power of attorney, we can usually do all of this for the clients. We can get the NIEs and finalize all the legal procedure to put the properties in their names, to take the money from the bank, transfer the money from the Spanish bank to the British one or any other country. This is something that we can usually do with the power of attorney, because in the Spanish system, the power of attorney allow you, to the lawyer, to make all these kind of things.
Apologies, everybody. I said NIES. I meant just NIEs.
Yes, sorry, yes.
It had a big S on the end instead of a little one. Oh, there we go. That's my fault. So we've talked about so the taxes to be paid. They depend on the scenario and which autonomous community you're in, don't they?
Yes, as probably all our followers will know, in Spain we have a system of communities. Okay, we have 17 communities, and this regulation about the taxes depending on the community. Okay, that means that it's not the same to pass away in Andalusia or pass away in Catalonia or in Valencia. Okay, it's very different. It's true that we have a minimum for all over Spain, but each community can improve the system. That means that usually the typical scenario is wife and children will pay not a lot, but in some communities they won't pay anything. For example, in Andalusia, when you the inheritors are your wife or your children, you are not going to pay anything unless you receive more than 1 million of euros per person. Okay. I wish.
Yeah.
But yes, but it's not very common. And even if you inherit more than 1 million of euros, you will pay taxes over the 1 million of euros. Okay. Yes, that means that you are not going to pay almost nothing. It's very typical to hear in the news, in the media or Facebook group, okay, in Spain the taxes are too high. It's not true. Depending on who is the person and in which community you are, okay? Because in Andalusia, for example, in Madrid, now in Valencia, they have a new government now. They are thinking in change the law there. And usually when you inherit from your parents or from your wife or your husband, it's almost free, okay? The taxation of the inheritance.
Now, there's a question just here from John McClue. I think we need some more details before we give an answer. He's saying, what happens if there's no will and there's a property owned in Spain and our family are in the UK? My question would be, are you resident in Spain? That would be the first. So tell us about that.
The here is, firstly, we need to know who are the inheritors. This is the first thing we need to know. Okay, and according to this answer, we can go to the next step. Okay, because we have to know if the person with the property in Spain was tax resident or not, or if some of the inheritors are non-resident or resident in Spain. This is why we have to go per case. No, each case is a different thing. No?
It could be very complicated if some of the inheritors are in the UK, some are resident in Spain.
And the thing is, sometimes we have to submit tax declaration through the Andalusia, for example, through the Andalusia authorities, and any other inheritors through the national authorities, because we have different scenarios depending on where the inheritors are. No?
Right, so it seems that his inheritors are all in the UK, resident in the UK, and he would be resident in Spain. So you're asking, John, what happens if you die, and yes, what happens if there's no will? And
if you don't have will, we have to wait until the official document from your country to state who are the inheritors. The good thing of the will is, in the moment you make a will, you are stating who are your inheritors. If we don't have the will, we need an official document from your country stating, okay, the inheritors of this person are this
so how would that work out in if you've checked in the will bank and there's no will? So, and how would they get in touch? How would they know to get in touch with you?
Yeah, no, that's the way. Okay, in the moment somebody pass away, firstly we need the death certificate. With the death certificate, we'll go to the will bank, and the will bank double check. Okay, this person doesn't have a will in Spain. Automatically, we have to find the official document from your country stating who are the inheritors. Okay. And in that exactly moment, we will begin to all the legal procedure. Okay. But until we don't have this document, the only thing we can do is, okay, we probably know who will be the inheritors. Imagine that only children or 4 siblings. In that case, we can go a little bit ahead, but we have to wait until we have this document from your country.
There we go. Thanks for the donation, Kev. By the way, he's just dropped £10 in there. That's absolutely wonderful. And John says, I'll be a ghost. I'll communicate through my medium. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
It's good to have a medium, especially if the medium is a lawyer.
Yes, get a medium lawyer. So we've got somebody asking, Fran, do you also do visas and residency?
No, I'm not doing visas. We are very overwhelmed with people selling, buying, and inheritance, especially. We don't have time for more new things.
There you go. But Chris from Upsticks, he's on next week's show, and in fact for the following 3 weeks, we'll put you in touch with him. He's a good man for visas. And let's go down here. Useful information. He's saying, can you help us with a visa before we get started on our Spanish will? No, that's the same question. So, no, we can't, but we can put you in touch with somebody who can. In fact, Chris's details are in the video description below. So, you got through, I think, all of the details of inheriting with a Spanish will, did you?
Andrew, yes. I will mention another tax that people usually don't have information about this, and this is called in Spanish the PLUSVALIA municipal. Okay. Okay. What's happened is this is only when you have property in Spain. Okay. When we have the typical inheritance tax, this is for the government of the community, but we also have what we call the PLUSVALIA. This is something like the capital gain for the townhall where the property is. Okay. This is a tax that you usually pay when you are selling a property, but you also have to pay when you inherit a property. Okay, this is very, very important. usually you have to pay because the value when the person who passed away bought the property and the value when you inherit the property is higher. That means that almost always you have to pay this tax to the townhold. This tax is has to calculate according to the valor catastral. Okay, is the value of the property in cadastro that you used to pay your IBI, your rates bill every year, and you have to bear in mind this tax too. Okay. About the taxes, I forgot to mention that in case you have to pay taxes, the Spanish system allows you the possibility to ask for installment. Okay. This is very important because sometimes the inheritor don't have the possibility to pay the tax. Okay, and in that case, the Spanish system gives you the possibility to ask for installment and pay monthly in maximum 2 years. Okay.
Is it possible to reject your inheritance? Yeah.
It's another possibility, but sometimes I have some clients who, without any advice, rejected the inheritance because they have to pay taxes. But especially with properties, we have to bear in mind that we have solutions to avoid this, because it's true that if you have to pay 10,000 euros, but the value of the property is 1,000 euros, okay, you have to pay the taxes, but you are receiving a property with a value. The problem here is sometimes the people say, okay, Fran, but I have to pay the tax. But what's happening if I cannot sell the property, or I don't have the money to pay the taxes if I don't sell the property? Okay, we have solutions to do this, because sometimes what we do for our clients is, okay, don't worry, put the property on the market, try to get a buyer. You can sign a private contract, get the deposit. In the private contract, you have to mention, okay, we are in the legal process to organize the inheritance things, but in 6 months' time, we can go to the notary to sell the property. You can take the money of the deposit when you sign the private contract and use this money, for example, to pay all these things about the inheritance. And when this thing is done, you can go directly to the notary to sell the property. Okay. We have options. Don't reject without legal advice, because we have the possibility to solve this kind of problem. And it's very usual for us to sign private contract when the property is inherited, use this money to complete the inheritance, and then go to the notary to sell the property to the buyer.
Okay. Bev had a question earlier that I missed out. And John's asking a similar question. What happens, basically, let's put that one on the screen. What happens if I'm resident in Spain and I died, I owned my home, and there's no family back anywhere, really? What happens to the property if there's no will?
In that case, the Spanish law, we have to apply the Spanish civil law, the civil code. And if we don't have nobody to inherit, this will go to the government. And the government will take the property. Yes, it could happen. But if you have the possibility to live, I have some clients living even properties to association, cancer association, sometimes to dogs association, things like that. It's not very typical for the Spanish people, because for us to leave all your properties to an association is not something normal here. But I have a lot of clients leaving all their assets in Spain to cancer association or any kind of association to help others. No, it's a possibility.
Excellent. And Judith is asking, I'll just sum up the question. Do you need an NIE to receive inheritance wherever you're from?
Yes. The NIE is an obligation. It's an obligation because This is the number, the identity we will have to use for the taxes declaration.
Yeah. I did a whole film, a whole video all about how that relates to your tax number. So yeah, it is basically your tax number. So John says he's going to haunt the Spanish government. He's still going on about being a ghost.
Yes, but to be honest, it's a long process, because what they are going to do is, in the moment the person passes away, probably rates bill won't be paid. The town hall will send letter, in the land registry. They will put some embargoes to say, okay, this property is under this, and probably 20 years later, the government will take the possession of the property.
So you'll have to haunt them for quite a long time then. Lots of different departments.
Yes,
That'll be interesting.
It's great. It's great.
Yes, you'll never get no arrest. So you had a good tip here, which is all about inheritance tax for people who aren't married.
This is because we had long time ago a bad experience with some clients of us. They were living together more than 30 years. Unfortunately, she had a long ill cancer process. The surprise for us was when we discovered they were not married. Even they were not registered as a civil partnership, or what we call in Spanish pareja de hecho. And the taxes that the inheritors have to pay was unbelievable. Because in the Spanish system, when you inherit from one stranger, and I call a stranger as a person who is not family, okay? It's unbelievable, because you have to pay, we have to make the calculations, and then we have to multiply by 2. It's something like a penalty, okay? That means that if you are, you have partner, my advice is, or get married, or just in case you don't want to be married, register yourself as a pareja de hecho or civil partnership in your country, okay? Because in that case, the taxation is the same as if you are married with the person, and you will avoid a lot of taxes to pay, okay? This is very important because it's unbelievable the tax you have to pay. For example, I can give an example. If you receive 20,000 euros, probably the tax is almost half. It's amazing.
Yes, it's good advice. We've talked quite a bit about inheritance without a Spanish will. Is there anything else you need to say about that before we move on?
Yes, if you don't have the Spanish will, if you have the possibility to do it your Spanish will. But if not, we will have to wait. The inheritance is solved in your country. This is the problem. In some countries, I have some clients in the US, and depending on the state, they have last will, the possibility to use the last will there and use here, okay? But it's not the common thing. Usually, it takes a lot of time to solve the inheritance in their countries, and after that, we have to solve the inheritance here. Usually, the typical scenario is we want to sell the property because we don't have any connection with Spain. Yes, but we cannot sell the property until these things are done.
There, you talked about the autonomous communities, the CCAAs. That's what I was asking you before the show. What's that all about? Because I've never heard the abbreviation. But that's the autonomous community. Are there a lot of different regional differences in inheritance tax laws and exemptions and tax relief?
Yes, we have a lot very different scenario here. For example, I don't know if I mentioned before, now in Andalusia, probably is the best one, Andalusia and Madrid, okay? And the other communities are trying to copy this in order to avoid the taxes, especially when you inherit from parents, children, or grandparents, and your wife or husband, or civil partnership, okay? When you are under these scenarios, the intention is to avoid the payment of the taxes, okay? But when you are out, is your cousin or this kind of families, you have to pay. You have to pay tax.
Are there any differences then if the property owner is non-resident? Is the tax paid in Spain or the residence country? And what's this international succession all about?
You will pay because it is true that the theory of the law in Spain mentioned this thing about the other things you inherit in any other countries. But my question here usually is, for example, if it's Andalusia, the authority that you have to pay the taxes, how the Andalusia community in Spain can have any information from any other country if something happened. That's the key here, okay? Because this kind of information are not connected between Andalusia or any other countries, okay? That means that it's very typical, okay, if you are in the US or in the UK, try to solve your inheritance there. And here we are not going to mention anything from there. And here we are only going to submit your inheritance about the properties in Spain. And we can make it in a different way, all about your inheritance in your country and another inheritance here. Probably this is a typical scenario.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, before we move on, we're going to have a quick message from me and my 3 alter egos about the wonderful things available to all of you as YouTooSpain fans. So let's do that now then. Take it away, Scats and the rest of them. Are you getting something helpful from this show? Are you enjoying YouTooSpain? Then click on the thumbs up and subscribe to YouTooSpain while you're here. And click on the bell for notifications. It's all free, but it's worth loads of money. I need coffee to keep my picker up. You can donate coffee to us all. There's a link in the video description below, or use the QR code. It'll be in the top left-hand corner of the screen after this message, sweetie. But that's not all. You can support YouTooSpain with a regular monthly amount. It's only a few quid. Oh, he's worth a lot more than that. There's a link below to Patreon, where you can find out what extra groovy things you get by helping out. Oh, I'm all a quiver. One more thing. Get on with it. There's an important guest twiddling their thumbs. All right, calm down. The lovely video watcher needs this. Go on then. There are lots of other links to vital things below. Like what? Well, do you need private healthcare insurance? Yes. Do you need a visa or residency? Do you need to exchange currency? What about finding a property? Or getting tax and pensions advice? Or getting a Spanish mortgage? Or getting documents translated and apostilled? Or getting a medical certificate? Or finding a lovely little app for learning Spanish? Do you need the best mobile phone provider? Or a digital business card so you never need paper ones again? Or do you just want one of YouTooSpain's t-shirts with a slogan on it? You can even get discounts on dental treatments and get a lovely little smile like Scats. All of those links are there, down below. If you can't find them, ask me in the comments. Is that everything, darling? I need to get my nails done. Probably not, but let's get back to the show, shall we? Back to Scats in the studio. I wanted to say that. Oh, stop being beastly, you two. YouTooSpain. Over to you, Scats. Thank you very much, Scats, and Walter, Tommy and Dick for joining us. If you've got any questions for any of them, then ask in the comments below. I'm going to make some very short videos with just those individual characters, just so that they can answer your questions. So send your questions in. That'll be lovely. And I just ask in the chat there, where's that gone? Kev the Argonaut, you made a donation before. Was that from clicking on the $ on the bottom corner of the screen down here somewhere? Because that's something that people need to know as well. That's a lovely thing to do. And thank you for appreciating us. Let's see if there's any more questions come in the meantime. Alicante Explorer, good morning to you. You have a question here. I own UK properties. My son lives in Spain. I will move to Spain in 2 years. On my death, can he keep the UK properties to give him a rental income, and can he borrow against them to pay the tax?
Okay, this is a question especially for a British lawyer because he has to solve the inheritance in the UK, and probably her son will be the owner of the property and can get rental from the property or things like that, okay? But this is something that we are not going to do here because in the UK, the inheritor has to do what he has to do in order to register the inheritance, no? But this is something not related with the Spanish authority.
Okay. It'll only be related when to the Spanish tax authority when you get the rental when the son gets the rental income, I suppose.
Yes, this is another thing. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks for that answer. And Kev says, yes, he donated via the little dollar sign in the screen. I keep forgetting about that. That is a very easy way to donate. And thanks again, Kev. So,
Andrew, I would like to mention something about, because we are speaking about how good is the Spanish system for the will bank and these things. But to be honest, we have, from my point of view, a bad thing. Especially is we have a land registry for properties, we have the DGT for cars, okay, but we don't have a registry, okay, to know where the person who passed away had bank accounts. Mm-hmm. And sometimes our advice is, okay, go home and check letter from the bank to know where your family had bank accounts. But mm-hmm. especially now, when the banks are not sending any letter, sometimes it's not easy for the inheritors to know where the person has bank accounts or not, okay? Mm. And we don't have the possibility to go to anywhere to say, oh, how many bank accounts this person had in Spain. For this reason, my advice is, when you made your will, send to your lawyer something like a file, an Excel file, a Word file with the bank accounts or the assets you have, and try to update this every year, okay? Mm-hmm. It was very helpful for us in order to, with the power of attorney, for example, go to the banks, okay, this client has a bank account here. Please, could you give me the certificate that I need to the inheritance things? This is something that is very easy to do, an Excel, something like this, and your lawyer can update every year if you have a new bank account or if you change your car or things like that.
Okay, so you don't actually put that in the will, that's just something in your records that go along with it?
Yes. This is something we usually offer to our clients, to have a record about changes about the bank accounts or things like that, because it's not, we don't have any other way to discover if the person has 2, 3, 4 bank accounts in Spain.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. So let's talk about the documents that you need to administer an estate in Spain then.
We mentioned before that the first one and the most important one is the death certificate. If it's in Spain, usually after the funeral, the company who usually deal with these things will give you 3, 4, 5 copies of the death certificate if it's in Spain. If it is out of Spain, we have to get the death certificate. Depends on the country. European countries doesn't have to apostille or translate the document, but when it's out of the European Union, we need the apostille and the translation. After that, we will get the certificate from the will bank. We have to get the document from your Spanish bank accounts stating what was the amount when the person passed away if the person has investment or not. I forgot to mention that when we apply for this document from the will bank, we also apply if the person had or not an insurance in his name. This is very important. Okay, we have the two things, the two registration, insurance and will bank. Okay, that means that sometimes you hire a credit card, for example, and one insurance is included. This will appear in this document. Or, for example, you have funeral insurance. These kind of things will appear in this document. Okay, because we have also we have to also declare the money you receive from the insurance companies. Okay, this is very important. When if we have a car, we have to get the document from the car. Okay, we have to get the legal original will from the notary, and we have to get the NIEs for the inheritors. Okay, having this is when we organize all in the notary, and if we have power of attorney, we will sign in the name of all the inheritors. If not, they have to come to Spain and sign in front of the notary.
Okay.
And after that, it's something like when you buy a property, we have to take the deeds, submit all the tax declaration, and we have to bring them to the land registry. We have to bring all these documents to the banks to unblock the bank accounts. And after that, you will have your nota simple or the certificate from the land registry showing that you are new owner of the property, and will transfer all the money from your bank, from the Spanish bank account to the inheritors bank account.
By the way, everybody, if you want to get in touch with Fran, there is, if you use the YouTooSmile@gmail.com email address down there, that actually comes through to me, but I'll pass them directly on to Fran very, very quickly. So, and he'll get back in touch with you. So if you send your phone number on that email, that will be the best way to get in touch. There you go. My next question was, can you actually avoid paying inheritance tax on property in Spain?
This is something that, because I hope the taxman is not seeing your show.
I didn't say evade, I said avoid. Okay. There's a big difference there.
But sometimes when I explain this, since that I want to avoid the law, is not true. But what is true is we have to know all the things about the law. No? In the Spanish system, we have a thing that is called the prescription, okay, of the law. That means that the authorities has a limited time to inspect you or to check things, okay? In taxes, we are talking about 4 years, okay? That means that, remember what I mentioned before, we have firstly 6 months, okay, to submit all the tax declaration, all the things, okay? But if when this 6 months finish, if 4 years pass, that means that it has to be 4 years and 6 months, and you don't do anything, and the tax authorities don't go to you, that means that you don't have to pay anything. Okay, but very important. Firstly, when the person passes away in Spain, the death certificate is communicated to the tax authorities. In that case, you cannot avoid this, because they will send you the letter to say, hello, you have to do something, and they have 4 years to do this. But if the person passes away out of Spain, nobody knows. It's true that you can't do anything with the property in this time, but if you have to pay taxes, you can avoid to pay the taxes, okay? But only in the case the person passes away out of Spain. Imagine that some clients, the strategy or they plans, okay, Fran, we are going to wait because we can keep using the property, we can keep paying the rates bill every year, okay, and we are not thinking to sell the property. That's fine, you can wait. But imagine that 2 years later, they change their mind. Okay, Fran, we have changed our plan, and now we want to sell the property. No worries, because you can submit all this legal proceeding and tax declaration out of the time limit, okay? The only thing is, in case you have to pay taxes, you will pay the fine. Usually it's a percentage, but it's not more than the 20%, okay? If you have to pay taxes, because sometimes it's very surprised for some clients, but they didn't have to pay taxes, no? But it's an option, especially when the inheritors are not children, wife or husband, and they have to pay a lot of taxes. Just in case they plan to do this, okay? We are not talking about something illegal. We are talking about, okay, the tax authority has the 4 years to check, but if in 4 years' time they cannot do it, they cannot come back and claim something.
Yeah. Good to know. So, what would you do if you inherit a house in Spain? The question is, how do you know the property is legal? I think people are aware of the problems that they used to have way back 10, 20, 30 years ago when there was legal problems with ownership.
Usually the same lawyer who is dealing with the inheritance will check the legality of the property, okay? What we usually do is, firstly, we are going to go through the inheritance process, okay, to finalize in time this all these legal things. And after that, when the property is in the name of the new owner, is when we are going to solve the problem in case the property has some problems, okay? Because it's very typical, for example, things like, okay, the property in the land registry is a ground floor, but the reality is 2 more floors, okay? And if you are thinking to sell the property, this has to be updated in the land registry. But this is something that you have to do, especially after the registration of the inheritance.
Okay. So let's have a look at any pitfalls. Is there anything to avoid when setting up a will and planning in advance?
The typical one is what we mentioned before. Some people refuse the inheritance, okay? Before to do it, they have to pay something, if they have to pay taxes or not, okay? My advice is, okay, before to do anything like this, hire a lawyer and try to double check the approximate cost of the total things, okay? Because this is something we usually do for our clients. Before to do anything, I will let them know all the possible costs, notary, taxes if you have to pay taxes, what I mentioned before, the PLUSVALIA. I will make a calculation about all the total costs, okay? When it's a tax that have to be can be paid in installment, I will let you know, okay, this amount of money you can apply for installment, okay? This amount of money you will have to have before, or in case you don't have the money to do it, put the property on the market, okay? Try to get the buyer, and with this money, you can go ahead. No? But it's very typical. A lot of people refuse the inheritance without knowing what's happening or what is the amount we have to pay, because they hear something about unbelievable payments of inheritance taxes, but not to be honest, the typical inheritance I have from clients is they don't pay taxes, especially because they are usually direct family member from the person who passed away.
You were saying about the law is very benevolent towards when the inheritors are direct inheritors.
Yes, that's the key. But and when you are not a direct member of the family, we can make the calculation. Okay, we have to we can see what is the minimum value that we have to put to the property. We have options, but before to refuse anything, what you need to know is the cost, no? Because it's true that you have to pay something, but you are going to receive something that is valuable, no?
Great. We've got, so any more legal advice and tips?
Yes, the last one. It's not very common with the Spanish people, but it's very common for us, for our international clients, to put an executor in your Spanish will. Okay, usually the lawyer who helped you to make your will can be executor in your will, and we usually put in the will all the information to contact the lawyer. Okay, email, telephone, things like that. And when something happens, the first thing you have to get is the will that, as I explained before, it's not very difficult to get this. But when you get the will, if you see who is the executor, you can contact the executor and speak with the lawyer to deal with all these things that have to be done. This is very helpful because you have the person who helped to the person who passed away, and probably is the best way to deal with this problem.
Excellent advice. Thank you for that. Let's see. Are there any more live chat questions, everybody? I always do a call out at this point late in the show because there's a time lag between when I ask the questions and when these come in on the live chat. So while we're waiting for that, let me just remind everybody that if you have any more questions or comments and they don't get dealt with in the live chat or after we go off the air, put them in the YouTube comments below, not on some random Facebook expat group that you took this as a link from there, because it's not going to help enough people on there. It's just going to be me and you talking about it, which is, I'm perfectly happy to do, but it's good that everybody else gets the answers underneath the same video so that they can look back at the video and all that. So it just helps a lot more people for free. It's a win-win-win with the cherry on top. And obviously don't forget to click on the like button if you haven't already. If you have already, don't click on it again because it just disappears then. And also subscribe to the channel so you'll be the first to know what's coming up each week on the live shows and the midweek videos. Now, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. Everybody give us a wave because we're going to close the show up very shortly. So tell us what you think of the show and any other questions that you'd like to see come up in the future about other subjects. Anything else you want to tell us, Fran, before we go?
I think we covered more or less all. It's true that we have a lot of possibilities, a lot of scenarios, but I think we have given the most important things, especially when something's happened. We know what is the best thing, the first thing we have to do. After that, my advice is not because I am a lawyer and it's my business, but hire a lawyer. It's very important because the lawyer will give you the peace of mind. You will avoid a lot of stress, especially when this kind of things happens. No, you don't have your mind to think on it. You have your mind in another way. No, hire a lawyer because I think probably is a very good moment to put all these things on the hands of the lawyer.
Excellent. Good to know. As we always say on this show, it depends. There are a lot of different circumstances. So to help you better, you need direct contact. And I agree. Get a lawyer. I've got to do have our wills sorted out soon as well. So there we go. I'm definitely going to do that. So very, very soon, I'll tell you who's on next Saturday's show. I've already mentioned it, but I'm going to tell you again. But before that, let's say a huge thank you and give a big virtual hug and a kiss to Fran for being such a great guest once again. So thank you so much. And you'll be welcome on again anytime.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye for now.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, so our next Saturday show, as I said a little bit earlier, if you remember, we've got Chris from Upsticks. He's back again. Yay! And he's going to be with us for the next 3 weeks. Triple yay! He's been in the UK visiting the new, what are they called, BLS, the visa centres in Manchester, Edinburgh and London. He's been talking to the officials there and seeing what the difference is between the different locations, and getting the latest information and updates straight from the horse's mouth. He loves to find out what it's like from your point of view, to help him help you and to help us as well when he's on the show. So do join us for the next 3 weeks and ask questions about visas and residency. You can even ask questions in advance, of course, on the YouTooSpain Facebook community or the Facebook page, or you can subscribe to this YouTube channel and ask questions in there. So thank you very much, everybody who's joined us on the live chat. And Kev the Argonaut says, great show as always, many thanks. Rule 1, engage professionals when doing stuff in Spain. Very good point. And is there, there was a question from Janet. Is there a minimum allowance in all districts for close relatives? That's good. Fran's actually still there in the background. Shall we answer this question? Fran, you're still there. Did you see that question?
Yeah. Yes, we have a minimum allowance. We have the minimum allowance for the general Spain, and then we have a minimal allowance depending on the community. This is what I mentioned before. In Andalusia is 1 million euros. In any other communities is about 200,000 euros or amount like that, especially when you are a direct member of the family. It's true that when you are in the third level, cousins or brother, people like this is less. In Andalusia, I think it's 10,000 euros per person, okay? For this reason, depends on where you are, it's different.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll wave you goodbye again. Thank you for coming back on. See you in a minute. Whoops. And okay then. So that is all for this week. Thanks Kev and Janet and Alicante Explorer and Bev and John and all of the others who we've spoken to today, and all of those of you who haven't been on the live chat but you've been watching intently. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, and everybody else who's watching afterwards as well. I will see you next week. I'll see you on the latest helpful video on Wednesday. That's a really good one. I've actually made it already, and I'm going to be programming it in later on today. So you'll see that very shortly. And so I'll see you again live next Saturday morning at our regular time of 9 o'clock if you're in the UK or Ireland or the Canary Islands, anywhere in that band, or 10 o'clock if you're in Spain or Central Europe. So that's all for this week. Somebody pass around the inheritance cookies. Peace and love to all of you. And here's one final message from all of us at YouTooSpain. Bye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.